tactics for a productivity calendar for busy business owners. And at the end of the video, I'm going to be going over my top 10 tips for time management. I run 2 successful businesses while staying at home and raising and homeschooling my 4-year-old son. And I still have time to do things that I enjoy, like cooking, hobbies, training my own dogs, and reading. My son asked me a question, and this is accurate because I timed it. It's every 2 minutes and 20 seconds on average throughout the day. So, how do I still get things done? The secret to this is finding my focus time. And I've tried 3 different ones. I'm going to share them with you today, as well as peppering in some cool tips for Google Calendar. Let's take a look. So, if we look at Google Calendar here, we're going to have 3 different categories. And the way I'm going to title this is the early bird, the 9 to 5, and the night owl. So up here at the top, we have the early bird, the normal work schedule, and the night owl. Now, the reason I want to break down these 3 is because, one, they're the most common, and hopefully you fit into one of these categories, but it also allows me to explain certain things. So our early bird here, this is what I would do. I used to wake up at 3:15 or 3:30, and then I would do my deep work for about 2 to 3 hours. We'll do 3 hours because that was the norm. Deep work, and I mean deep work. I'm doing funnel building, I'm doing writing a book, I'm writing emails, things that require a lot of brain power for me to accomplish. And then 7 to 9 would be breakfast and hanging out with the family. And then from 9 to 11, I would do like homeschooling activities and what we called experiments. Right? So we would have all of these fun things, activities, and we just do fun experiments that my son absolutely loves. So we would do all of that. And then from 11 to 12, I'd usually had a meeting. And this was a consulting meeting or something like that. 12 to 1 was going to be lunch. You can see how I'm just kind of running through this, but I'm not skipping any spaces. I want to fill everything in. And the reason I do that, even when it's not work related and it's not family related, I want to max out the calendar. I learned this in college. It made it so much easier for me to conceptualize what I was doing, where I was going, and who I was spending my time with. Right? So we'll stop there for now because you could do anything else here later on in the day. And usually from 1 to about 5, I just had meetings. And these were for my dog training business. I would have dog training meetings, whether they were in person, virtual. I was trying to film something. That's really what I went 1 to 5 with. And then we'd have dinner. I know I said it would stop, but this is good for you. And then I could do anything else for the rest of the night. Just hang out or hobbies, or I could do a class. I could do martial arts, something like that. And then I would sleep around 10 o'clock. So I'd sleep around there. Pretty cool, right? Now, what's really cool about Google Calendar, and I'm sure there's a whole bunch of calendars that can do this, is you can color coordinate. I don't like color coordinating. For the most part, I think it gets really confusing, at least in this context. I'm going to show you in a little bit how we do this. Actually, I'll just show it to you now. Fun tip. So here's what we're going to do. Instead of leaving this all on one calendar, I'm going to come up here to settings, click on settings. I'm going to add calendar, create new calendar, and this is going to be the night owl calendar. Okay, now I click on that, it's creating it, doodle-doo, doing its back end magic, wizardry, whatever. And then I come down here to night owl, and it's going to let me pick the color for the night owl right here. So I can click on it, and let's say we do purple, because for whatever reason in my brain, night owls are purple. Now I can turn off the Michael calendar that's down here, and look, all of this stuff goes away. So you can do this for work, you could do this for certain projects, you could do this for anything. But color coordinating in this way makes it really easy to turn it off and on, which keeps everything nice and clear. So let's do this again. We're coming up to settings, add calendar, create calendar, and this is normal schedule. So maybe you already have a job that you work with, right? Maybe you work a 9 to 5 and your business, your side hustle, if you will, is the other one, right? So maybe you want to try to be as effective as possible without getting mudded up in here. So let's look at our normal schedule. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to toggle those off. We'll toggle our tasks. We'll keep those so we can still see our thing up here at the top. So our normal schedule here, let's say, what was it, 9 to 5? 9 to 5. See how it's automatically a different color? I love that. Working at the job you hate, right? Hate that job, but you need the money. So we're going to work there. So now you need to decide, when is your focus time? Is it going to be early in the morning, which scientists have proven is the best time to do deep work? Right after you wake up, you should be doing focus time. Maybe you don't have kids and you could wake up anytime you like, and you just do a couple of hours here of focus time, then you get ready and you go to your job. Or at the end of the night when you're really, really tired and you're fed up of having to, wake up and go to that job that you hate, that becomes your focus time. That's totally fine too. You could do that. Either way is fantastic. You just need to find your focus time where no one's going to interrupt you. No one's going to be like in your face all over the place. You need to find your time where you can sit down and do everything that you want to accomplish. And before we get to tactic 2, I want to show you quickly what my night owl schedule was, because a lot of people get interested about this, because I'll go live at like 2 o'clock in the morning and people are like, do you ever sleep? Because then the next day I'll go live really early in the morning, or I'll go live in the afternoon. And so people are like, do you ever sleep? Like, you've written a book in a week, you've done this, you have these programs coming out. Here's how I do it, okay? This is actually the schedule I'm on right now and what I'm doing right now. So what I do is I wake up around 9 o'clock. And so from 9 to maybe like 10:30, I'm doing breakfast and hanging out. Okay, then from 10:30 to 11:30, I'm doing my social engagement. This is on social media, so I'll be responding to comments, I'll be trying to communicate with people, build relationships, be active in groups, that kind of thing. Then until about 12:45, this is just work, just general work. I'm writing emails, I'm doing research, maybe I'll have a meeting, something like that, nothing too crazy. Then I'll do lunch, really quick lunch. I usually meal prep during the week, and so we'll have lunch here. And then this is when I do homeschooling stuff, 1:30 to 3:30. So right now we're learning how to read. My son's learning how to really, really read using phonics, which is something I didn't learn how to do when I was a kid. It was just sight words. And I'm dyslexic. His mom's dyslexic, so I'm trying to set him on the right path to read right now. So we're doing a lot of reading in our homeschooling. So then 3 o'clock comes around. I probably have 2 or 3 meetings. So let's say that goes till 6. And these are just virtual meetings because everything I do is on virtual. And I just made a video earlier on the week, and I'm planning on changing some of those things. So stay tuned for that. If you didn't watch that video, I'm going to put the link down in the description. You can go check it out, and why virtual is not going to be the way to go in 2024. So then 6 o'clock to about 9, I take a nap. People are like, why are you taking a nap? I take a nap. I'm going to black that out because I'm going to stay awake throughout the night. And people think that's weird, but it's actually the best focus time I can get. Notice I said you needed to have a focus time, and I don't have a focus time here. So I'm going to take a nap from 6 to 9 right after dinner. This is what people used to do. They would just do it between 1 and 3 when it was too hot during the middle of the day to work. So I take a nap from 6 to 9, which is a 3-hour nap, which means I just need 5 hours later to make up for 8 hours if you believe that you need 8 hours of sleep. So if I'm waking up at 9, all I got to do is go back till 4 o'clock. And that becomes my 8 hours. So 4 to 9 and then 6 to 9. Now, I used to have this really structured and be like 5 to 9 both times, but it didn't work. 5 to 9 was too much for me to sleep in the middle of the day, and 4 to 9 worked out better. 6 to 9 and 4 to 9 worked out better. So now I have all this time from 9 p.m. all the way to 4 a.m., right, which is 7 hours. That 9 to 5 job we had on this normal schedule, this big chunk of time that you'd spend out working, I'm doing in the middle of the night when no one can bother me. I have nothing going on that I have to accomplish. It's everything that I want to accomplish, and I get my 8 hours of sleep, and I get to be alive during the day. Now you could do these two things, right? If we just switch it like that. If you meal prepped and you were really strict on your scheduling here, you could do this 9:30 to 5:30 job and still have your 2 chunks of sleep and get all that time in the middle of the night. Absolutely fascinating. Moving on to tactic number 2, schedule out as far as you can. When I have to go to the dentist, every time I go to the dentist, they're like, hey, we want to schedule you out 6 to 9 months in advance. Are they that important? Damn. And I know they're scheduling it out because they know that you don't need to come in for 6 to 9 months. Well, are you doing that in your life? Are you scheduling things out that far in advance? Right? Do you have to change your oil in your car? When you change your oil, just schedule it out. Well, do it right then while you're thinking about it. Do you have to meet up with this person in a month because you want to work on some project together? Cool, schedule it right now. Don't just say, I'll call you in a month. Schedule it when you think about it, and schedule as far in advance as you physically can. If you make this a practice, I promise it's going to be that much easier for your brain to wrap your head around, and you'll know what you're doing. I never know what I'm doing next week. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I got to look at my calendar because I get it out of my brain. Your brain's not there to remember things. Einstein said, don't remember anything you can look up. Don't remember anything that you can look up. So why would I keep it stored in my brain trying to remember all of these different things when I could just put it on a calendar and it will remember it for me? All right. Tactic number 3, either get someone else to do it or find an alternative. Spend time figuring out how to not spend time. Okay, I wrote a book, The Dog Training Cheat Codes, in a week. And I wrote it in a week because I figured out how to write it as fast as humanly possible before I sat down and wrote it. I said, I'm not going to sit down and type out all the words and try to do all the formatting and all that. No. Instead, what I did was I got all of the content out of my brain into an organized outline, and then I started talking. And I recorded everything I did talking, transcribed it, edited it, formatted it, sent it off to be published. Boom, within a week I had the book, The Dog Training Cheat Codes, and I did the exact same thing with the dog training booklet. Both will be in the link in the description down below if you're interested in checking them out. Now, why did I do this? Because I didn't want to spend months or years writing a book. I wanted to get a book out. I wanted to, have a book. I wanted to be published, but I wanted it to be a good book. So I spent the time figuring out how to do it effectively. And I didn't want to outsource it. I didn't want someone else to write the book and then for me to write it. And I didn't trust anyone else editing it. And I didn't want to pay for anybody else to format it. I just thought that was ridiculous. So I just figured out how to do it all by myself. This also goes for anything else that you have going on in your life. Can you delegate someone else to cooking? Right? Can you figure out, is it more cost effective? In some cases it is to eat out and go to Chipotle every day like Alex Ramosi used to, than it is to cook for yourself. Or is it actually cheaper for you to cook for yourself? Now you have to look at it this way. If you have to spend an hour every day cooking for yourself, would it have been more beneficial to work an extra hour to pay for the food? Simple. If you make less than $20 an hour, it doesn't make sense for you to eat out and go to Chipotle and spend $20. You might as well leave an hour early and go home and cook your own food. All you're doing is working an hour in order to pay for Chipotle. Now, transversely, if you make $120 an hour, it definitely makes more sense for you to keep working than it does to go home and cook. Tactic number 4, sticking to it. The hardest part is implementing this new routine, this new type of schedule. So what you need to do is commit yourself to 7 days at least of testing this out and see if it works. Then at the end of the 7 days, you can either throw it all out and start over, or you can improve upon it and say, well, I didn't like this. I can move this around. I want to do this. I want to do that. Congratulations on making it halfway through the video. We have the top 10 time management tips. Here we go. Time everything for a few days. I guarantee you will realize where your time is going. Apparently, I spent 3 hours and 18 minutes going to the bathroom every single day. Number 2, find the medium that works for you. I like to use digital spaces for my calendars, but to-do lists I still do on pen and paper. And there's a notebook that I've been running through constantly over and over and over again because I love how amazing it is to just cross the hell out of my to-do list and get things accomplished in red ink. Number 3, create a system for inputting and using your calendar. Maybe it's meeting once a week and having that on your calendar to sit down and go through the entire week, or a daily thing when you wake up, go to the bathroom in the morning, pull up your phone and look at your calendar for the day. You have to have some type of system, otherwise it's not going to work. Like I mentioned before, sticking to it. You have to do it for at least 7 days for your brain to start rewiring the neurological connections in using a calendar and being effective with it. Number 4, make your day a routine instead of fixed times and appointments. When I look here at wake up, deep work, breakfast, and hanging out with the family, right? Breakfast and hanging out with the family, yeah, it's more like, let me change the color here. Actually, let's change this color. When I do breakfast and hanging out with the family, there's a whole bunch of things that need to get done. I got to feed the dogs. That does not need to be its own thing. I got to feed my son. That doesn't need to be its own thing. I got to make coffee and take the dogs out, right? Those don't need to be their own things. I can block it all together, breakfast and hanging out with the family. There's certain things that have to get done, and my routine is when I wake up in the morning, I know that those things have to be tackled. And so I'm going to immediately do those things. I'm not going to have to go through my calendar and go, okay, do this. Okay, do that. Okay, do this. That's not how it works. Just chunk it out. And that leads us to our next tip. Batch your tasks before you get started. Every time I sit down to do things, I want to batch together the things that make the most amount of sense. So if I'm writing emails for the week for my one business, I'm also going to immediately after write the emails for my second business. If I'm doing research for YouTube videos, I'm going to do it for the first business and then the second business. And I'm not just going to do one video per business. I'm going to do multiple videos per business to make sure I have everything I need for the next time I sit down and go to film. Tip number, don't know, lost count. Leave space for poor planning. One of the best quotes I ever learned when I was a kid is proper planning prevents poor performance. So if you plan things ahead of time, you will prevent poor performance. I love the saying. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and it's great for your calendar. Leave extra space for traffic, travel time. You get into a flow state and you forgot that you had to do something. You didn't meal prep and you need time to cook. You did meal prep and now you want to sit down and do something else. You're just really burnt out from the day and you're not moving at the pace that you usually do. Maybe you don't feel well, right? You're sick, you're lethargic, but you still got to get stuff done. So you're just going to do those things a little bit longer than normal. Next tip, overcomplicate things and you will 100% fail without a doubt. Every time I've sat down trying to implement a new calendar, a new schedule into my life, the more complex I got, right? If you have to pull up a YouTube video and learn all these tips, tricks, and different techniques and all this stuff besides this type of video that's just a strategy, then it's going to make things way more complicated and you're going to fail. You don't need to learn every keyboard shortcut and all these different settings and color coordinate this and have a cross-platform dynamic with your calendar that connects to your phone and your iPad and your Google Home. You don't need all that. You need something that's simple and that you can rely on. Make it as easy as possible. That's why a lot of people still use paper planners. They don't use digital because it gets too confusing for them. Next tip, be flexible and move things around. Like spend some time early in the morning moving things around or just when it happens to come up. So let's say we had breakfast on our night owl day here and we did our social engagement and I had my meeting, but I'm not really hungry at lunch because I had a late breakfast. Well, maybe you move your lunch to 2:15 and instead I would start doing homeschooling that time. Right after my work, we jump right into homeschooling. We're doing some reading, we're doing some stuff like that, and then we have lunch at 2:15, 3 o'clock, and then maybe I'll have dinner later on at 6. Not only is it easier because it's digital, I can just grab and move it, but it's easy when they're the same amount of time. If it's an hour for one thing and an hour for the next, just swap them. Just move them around. If someone needs to, reschedule a meeting with you and it falls into a time where you're hanging out for an hour or you're having lunch for an hour, just swap those two things. We don't think about it like that, but it is really that simple. I want you to set up a daily agenda. Try to look at everything during the day, and Google has a feature for this. We can head over here to settings. We come down to the calendar that we want. We just made this calendar. And if we come down here to daily agenda, we can email ourselves the daily agenda. All it's going to do is send us what we have on the calendar for the day, and you can just pull up your email, look at the first email you get, and I'm sure you can set a whole bunch of different things like the time and things like that. You'll see what you have scheduled for the day ahead of time without having to open up the calendar app and look at everything. Here's a side note. You can put notifications on events. Very simple. It's in the same exact settings feature, but the notifications, I warn you, do not put so many. I honestly will just disregard notifications if I'm getting too many. I just completely zone out. I'm like, nope, too many. I'm not looking at them. And I like inbox zero. I like having no emails, no nothing in the way of me just enjoying the clean aesthetic of my phone. And so if you have way too many notifications, then it's not going to work. You don't want that. Get rid of them. But if you need to have notifications for whatever reason, spread them out. Have like one tomorrow, one the day after, and one 5 minutes before the event, right? You could do it like that. Or just have one an hour before the event so that you don't miss the event. You still have time to prepare for it. Tip number 10, add everything you can or you want to your calendar. It doesn't just have to be work. It doesn't just have to be projects and hobbies. It can literally be anything. You want to schedule going to the bathroom. You want to schedule sitting down and having a bunch of cookies. If you really must, go full Elon and schedule out every single minute of your day. Know exactly what you're doing, where you're doing, how you're doing, what you're doing, everything as best as you possibly can, and you will have the most detailed calendar humanly possible. I don't think it's one of the best things you could do, but sometimes that's what you need to do in the beginning. You have to know where you're spending your time, what you're doing, and how you can then improve, measure, and change upon it in the future. If you like today's video, hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss future uploads. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one. My mouth is so dry. Where's my water bottle?